right, how do you make a Hollywood hard man? No, not that kind. This kind.
Now, you listen to me, you little creep. I got no more time to around with you. Now, you break out DeFranco's file right now, or I'll rip out your throat.
Well, if there's a recipe, it's probably a lot like Brian Dennehy's life. I mean, come on, the guy's middle name is Mannion. Brian was raised in Brooklyn, got a football scholarship to Columbia, joined the Marines, worked blue-collar jobs so he could get enough money to go to Yale Drama School.
Gosh, Sherry, no wonder you took up gambling. You sure were born lucky.
You see, the stage was Brian's first love, but like a lot of stage actors at the time, when you get into movies, perhaps you remember this.
If you want some friendly advice, a haircut and take a bath. You wouldn't get hassled so much.
That's Brian as Sheriff Will Teasel in First Blood, the first and the best of all the Rambo movies. Hollywood loved it, and over the next few years, they loved Brian. Dennehy was busy. Look at this roster. Cocoon, Never Cry Wolf, Gorky Park, FX, playing the intimidating hard man to perfection. Plus, you may remember Brian as Chris Farley's old man in Tommy Boy. But in spite of all those roles in the TV and the movies, Brian craved the theater. One of his most memorable roles was Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. That earned him the first of 2 Tony Awards. Now he's bringing his legendary stage skills to Canada, performing at the Stratford Festival this summer. Brian Dennehy. Welcome to the show, sir. How you doing? Nice to see you, man. Good? You all right? Okay, all right. Do you watch yourself back in movies? Because you just saw almost all your work.
I can watch the old ones. I can't watch the recent ones.
Why not?
I guess because they're too fresh. You look at them and you say, God, what a fraud. But the old ones I kind of can say, because it's so divorced from who you are, you know, you can say, that's pretty good. Gene Hackman once said the true thing about acting, film acting, which is that it's hard to buy the whole thing, but you can buy certain scenes and say, that's pretty good. That stinks. Mm-hmm. I hate that, but that's good. There's fragments that you believe and that you buy. But on the stage, you don't have to worry about that because you can't see yourself.
Yeah, it's just happening and it's over.
So you just do it, and the great thing about the theater is you get to do it again tomorrow. If you screw it up tonight, you do it tomorrow.
That's also the bad part about the theater, is that you can't leave it behind you, and you have to go back and do it tomorrow.
No, that's not true. I did Willie in 650 times over a period of 8 or 9 years. You'd do it for 3 or 4 months, maybe on tour, or in the case of New York, I did it for a year. And then I did it for a year in London, and they were all separated by... And every time you came back, you start all over again. And you learn it in a different way. At every performance, because you have a different audience, if it's a great part, every performance is different, and it's all interesting. It never... Now, there are bad plays. When you're stuck in a bad play and a bad part, you can't wait to get out of it.
Have you ever been in a really bad play?
Oh, yeah, but I'm not telling you which one.
Just tell me, no one's watching.
I've been in some great ones. I mean, Long Day's Journey was a great play, and with a wonderful cast, Vanessa Redgrave and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Bobby Leonard. And, of course, Willie in Salesman, and some other good ones. But I've been in some bad ones, too. And that one's like breaking rocks, you know.
I can imagine. Now, would you ever stumble across your movies? Because
sure.
Every time I put on TV now, they're running Silverado, which is one of the, I think, one of the most, it's an underappreciated film because of everybody that's in it as well. Do you ever stumble across one of your movies and go, oh my God, and do you sit and watch it?
Well, what happens is, it's funny, sometimes you just can't wait to click it as fast as possible. But then sometimes you'll catch yourself and you'll say, gee, who's that guy? Who's that young guy? And that's kind of interesting. You know, I don't know. It's a weird thing to be an actor. It's
Are you good with aging?
strange.
Do you like aging in the business?
Yeah, like I have a hell of a lot of choice.
Well, listen,
you know?
You don't have a lot of choice,
I'm not going to turn myself into one of those monsters with the erased face, you know. And, hey, how are you?
Oh, but they're out there, aren't they?
I used to be Brian Dennehy. I don't know why the hell people think they look better. I don't get that. They look like hell.
What are the 4 stages of an actor's
It looks like
career?
they're plastic and they've taken this blowtorch and it all kind of melted.
But that's the business.
Well, that looks good.
That's the business you're in now, though, right? I mean, it is certainly...
Well, it's, you know, what's happening with plastic surgery is it's very weird. It's become the new paradigm in the sense that it's acceptable. it's acceptable to look like that, to have those big puffy lips, and to have that inhuman plasticine quality to your face, and everybody said, geez, that looks great. What? It looks terrible. I mean, I don't get it, but, we're 50 years from now, if you don't look like that, you'll probably have to wear a bag over your head. I don't know.
Is there, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. How have you aged in the business? Have you found that you've done it?
Well, what happens in the entertainment business, whether it's music, television, movies, or even theater, is a fashion business. Okay? It's the same as the fashion business. You're in fashion, you're out of fashion. There are some things like Yves Saint Laurent or, in fashion, or Jack Nicholson, or U2, or Tony Bennett, who never go out of fashion. They're always in fashion. And they have long careers. And there are people like me who have periods of fashion, and then, they say, who? I thought he was dead. He's dead, isn't he?
What are the 4 stages of an actor's career?
4 stages of an actor's career are, who is Brian Dennehy? Get me Brian Dennehy. Get me a young Brian Dennehy. And who is Brian Dennehy? Good cross, but it must be hard. Right now, I'm in stage 5.
You've been on a lot of stuff. I mean, I just can imagine the stories. There was a story about you and meeting Ray Davies from the Kinks the second time.
I was on a plane going to London, and in those days I was drinking pretty good.
Which you don't do anymore.
No. And so I was up we were in first class. I was obviously being paid to do a job because I would never pay for first class. And this very hip guy was standing there with kind of ink black hair, and and he was drinking too. And he recognized me. He said, Brian Dennehy. So I said, yeah. He says, I'm Ray Davies of the Kinks. Now, you got to probably be my age, but that was
Kinks were amazing.
That was some hip group. I remember meeting Spencer Davis one day too, and went down on my knees and said,
Spencer Davis, man.
Spencer
Steve
Davis,
Winwood.
one of the great rock and roll groups of all time.
But so you got drunk with...
So Davis and I got smashed until they made us sit down and go to sleep, which we did. But anyway, I came off the plane in Shannon. For some reason, we had to change planes in Shannon, in Ireland. And there were a whole bunch of obvious rockers waiting there, and they weren't waiting for me. And I come stumbling out, and somebody goes, oh, I know that bloke. Look at that old bloke there, that old yank. I know him. And I said, he's right behind me, folks. And he's drunker than me.
And did you meet him again years later?
I think years later we met at a dinner someplace, and he's still wearing the same clothes, still very hip, very rocker, whatever that style was. But he's a wonderful musician. And a great guy to get loaded with. On a plane to London.
You're buddies with Christopher Plummer, aren't you?
Yeah, Chris and I did a play together a year ago in New York, and he's coming in a couple of weeks to do Caesar and Cleopatra. Wonderful guy. I always like to kid Chris that I remember Chris right from the beginning of my career. I was a senior in high school. I saw him on stage in Stratford. But of course, he was only 25. He was a star when he was a kid. He's a few years older than me, but not a hell of a lot. And of course, he's been a star for a long time. Amazing guy. And still looks fabulous, and is a hell of an actor. And he's from Montreal.
People love him up here, without a doubt.
Well, he's to be loved. He's as Stratford is. He's a cherished Canadian fixture, and he should be. He's an extraordinary guy. We love him in the States. If you need an aristocrat in the movies, you hire Chris Plummer. Because there's nobody else who knows how to play it down there. But he does.
Speaking of fixtures, much is made about this new De Niro-Pacino film, which I think now is being called Righteous Kill, which you were also in. Mm-hmm. What can you tell us anything?
Well, they had to hire me. Because De Niro and Pacino play 2 homicide cops who are at least 30 years older than they should be. So to get somebody to play the head of homicide, they had to get somebody even older than them. So we play the 3 oldest homicide cops in history. Now, having said that, The three of us are too old to play retired cops. De Niro looks amazing. I mean, Al, you know, looks like Al, and I look like I look like. Having said that, these guys are fabulous. I mean, there are reasons why they're stars. They're enormous stars. Also, great fun to be around. We had a good time in the movie. I hope the movie works because it was fun to make.
And speaking of fun, what's the role? You've been in so many roles. I remember you from Bestseller with James Woods, which was one of my favorite films as a kid. And also you were...
Or is he crazy?
Yeah, he's kind of gone off, hasn't
Well,
he?
it depends. No, he's got the TV series in the States.
No, but I mean, gone off.
Well, you know, it's funny. He likes to play that he's a brilliant guy. He went to MIT. He got a huge IQ, which he'll tell you about if you give him a minute and a half. But he is a brilliant guy, and he's a wonderful actor. And he's, you know, when he's off his meds, you've got to be careful.
What was it like you were in Canada making a movie with Chris Farley. I mean, you made Tommy Boy. Is that the movie you get recognized the most
Yeah,
for?
that's the fun. Well, that's the young one. Well, I say we're young. Now they're all 35. The young ones have no idea who I am. But the people 35, 37 who were, you know, contemporaries of Chris, 40, they remember Tommy Boy. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time. We met it in Toronto, in fact, and Chris used to like to spend his evenings. What's it called? The Brass Rail? Is
Brass
that
Rail, yes. Strip, very famous strip joint in this country.
He was very generous to those girls. And since they were all putting themselves through college, it was very nice that he was.
You know, you've spent, Chris, obviously, it's a hard business, and we lost Chris. You partied a lot, didn't you? I mean, there's a decade you don't remember?
Wasn't like that. You know, I never got too far past the booze stage, but I played pretty hard there. You know, it was interesting. These kids, Lindsay Lohan and these actors, they have a real tough rap now because the paparazzi are all, wherever they go, they follow them around. They jump in front of their cars. Well, I can remember 30, 40 years ago, a group of people whose names I will not mention, but including myself, the only difference between us and those kids is we had no paparazzi. But I mean, you know, taking a leak outside of a restaurant in Beverly Hills, no problem. But I mean, you know, it wasn't. Well, some guys were in the hard drugs, but I wasn't one of those. I couldn't afford it. For one thing, I barely afford the booze. But yeah, I mean, that's always been the case. What happens is in this business, if you're lucky, you make some money and you have a lot of free time, and you know, you get a good table someplace, and one thing leads to another. Unless you're very, very tough, you know, you start drinking. And acting has always been. I mean, guys, you know, George Scott, Jason Robards, these guys were always tough drinkers in New York. And, you know, like anybody else, it was fun. I had a good time. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about the kids today, young kids in the business, is they don't seem to have a lot of fun. Yeah. You know, it's too hard. Business is too tough.
You guys really enjoyed it, didn't you?
We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and I survived it. And I didn't hurt anybody else, at least not physically.
Good to see you. Okay. Brian Dennehy, everybody. Make sure you check him out. If you come to Ontario this summer, Brian's on stage from mid-June to the end of August at Stratford Festival. All's well that ends well. Huey and Beckett's Fab Flash Cake. You got to check it out. Brian Dennehy. We'll be right back. Raised in Brooklyn, got a football scholarship to Columbia, joined the Marines, worked blue-collar jobs so he could get enough money to go to Yale Drama School.
Gosh, Sherry, no wonder you took up gambling. You sure were born lucky.
You see, the stage was Brian's first love, but like a lot of stage actors at the time, when you get into movies, perhaps you remember this.
If you want some friendly advice, a haircut and take a bath. You wouldn't get hassled so much.
That's Brian as Sheriff Will Teasel in First Blood, the first and the best of all the Rambo movies. Hollywood loved it, and over the next few years, they loved Brian. Dennehy was busy. Look at this roster. Cocoon, Never Cry Wolf, Gorky Park, FX, playing the intimidating hard man to perfection. Plus, you may remember Brian as Chris Farley's old man in Tommy Boy. But in spite of all the... Okay, all right. Do you watch yourself back in movies? Because you just saw almost all your work.
I can watch the old ones. I can't watch the recent ones.
Why not?
I guess because they're too fresh. You look at them and you say, God, what a fraud. But the old ones I kind of can say, because it's so divorced from who you are, you know, you can say, that's pretty good. Gene Hackman once said the true thing about acting, film acting,
Those roles in the TV and the movies, Brian craved the theater. One of his most memorable roles was Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. That earned him the first of 2 Tony Awards. Now he's bringing his legendary stage skills to Canada, performing at the Stratford Festival this summer. Brian Dennehy. Welcome to the show, sir. How you doing? Nice to see you, man. Right? You all right? All right, how do you make a Hollywood hard man? No, not that kind. This kind.
Now, you listen to me, you little creep. I got no more time to around with you. Now, you break out DeFranco's file right now or I'll rip out your throat.
Well, if there's a recipe, it's probably a lot like Brian Dennehy's life. I mean, come on, the guy's middle name is Mannion. Brian was raised